I'm going to do different this morning, and I'm going to ask Jay Neal to open us with prayer.
Father, thank you, Dave, for this day you give us. Thank you for a good week. And we know that, Lord, we are in a very busy and difficult time of session, so we pray especially for your presence, your leadership, your guidance. Help us, Lord, never forget the reason that we're ultimately here. And it's not about anything personal, not about any gains personally. It's about doing our best to make this a better place to live. We give you praise and glory to keep us focused on the real task at hand. Praise in Jesus.
Thank you. It's normal procedure that I have a new microphone. I don't have to hunch over here and not talk to you like I'm some kind of distorted something up here. The normal procedure for the morning prayer is that someone on the committee will pray. Jay has been here so many times that I think he's on the committee. So, he ex officio. And on a serious note, now I hope everybody is aware of what went on over in Japan, and I would ask that you keep those people in your minds and in your prayers. It's a terrible thing. But with that, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and what you're talking about what's in Japan, our son Carlton just went back to Honolulu Sunday, and he's there. So London and I have been up since 4:30 this morning trying to make contact with him. So the waves are hitting Honolulu right now. We haven't heard from him, but if y'all will keep Carlton in your prayers, we would appreciate it. So, and I bring to you under the modified structure rule, House Bill 341. It's on the third page. It's a bill allows for creation of what they call an LPS for Georgia domestic life reinsurers. It's only life reinsurers. An LPS is subject to full regulation by the insurance department. There's full support of this bill. It will be regulated by the insurance department. We do have domestic carriers in the state that would help make them more competitive, and we have employees in the state that it would help benefit. There's been no opposition to the bill. I'd be glad to ask any questions on 341.
Do we have questions? Thank you. Next.
I was going to mention one other one, Mr. Chairman, if you would allow. House Bill 487 deals with traffic mitigation. I asked for it yesterday, and be very humble if the committee would consider it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I know you asked for that yesterday, but would you highlight that one more time, please?
Absolutely.
I was sleeping during that somewhere along the line.
Okay, this is, some of you may know that there are towing companies that contract with the Department of Transportation when there's a major wreck on the interstates or anywhere on a road. All of these trucks are overweight, and when we have a major catastrophic loss or wreck, they have to bring all their equipment out there, and before they get there, they are overweight. And when they remove an accident, trucks, whatever it may be, loads, they do get off the interstate as quickly as possible. There is some issues with weights on bridges, and of course the department has to post the weight limit on a bridge. Unfortunately, when these contractors are doing the work and they remove a wrecked truck or two trucks, they're always overweight to get to their designation, and our Department of Public Safety fine these people for being overweight after we contract to use them. So we're trying to give them a little break, and it's just good policy.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bring to you on the second page under modified structure, House Bill 133. This is a bill that allows the Revenue Department to round off to $1 refunds or amounts due. If you owe less than $1, they will not bill you. If you are due a refund of less than $1, they will not send it unless you request it, and if you request it, they shall send it.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Down on third page, about halfway down, House Bill 485. It's that wild hog bill, Mr. Chairman, that for some reason folks like to catch them with a dog and take them back, and all this thing says is when they turn them loose, it's got to be in a fenced area and not running up and down somebody else's property and reproducing and rooting up everything they can get their mouth on.
We say that because we knew most of you didn't have a clue what feral was. So it's a wild hog. Wow. McCall and I got the same accent. Wow.
Wild hogs is what they may be.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Maxwell. Maxwell.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No,
I thought you said Matt.
Wrong name, Doc. You're getting me confused with somebody else.
You know, it is early, and I have lost control of this already, but to the wall, chairmen are allowed to come up to the front. Included in that move to the front are governors, floor leaders, and caucus officials. And the rest of you people just come on to the front too. It doesn't matter. We'll just wide you up and let you go. I'm losing it. Okay, Mr. Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are you Meadows or Maxwell?
I'm going to be Mr. Maxwell today, sir.
Okay.
I got three little propositions I'd like to ask y'all about. Third page, modified structure. First one is House Bill 370. What this does is implements requirements of the National Association of Insurance Commissioners Accreditation Program. If Georgia does not maintain our accreditation, then our domestic companies are subject to financial examination by other states and would have to bear the cost of that examination. This is designed to make sure our capital requirements maintain an adequate amount for our P&C companies. That's what that bill does.
Questions?
House Bill 371, if I can continue. That little bill states that no political subdivision or any other entity of the state shall have an insurable interest on the life of active or retired public employees. It says if they do, all the payments for proceeds for life insurance would have to be paid directly to the beneficiary or the beneficiary's estate. And this is through the insurance code. We had a couple other bills come through retirement code. This goes through insurance code.
Questions? Okay.
One more, Mr. Chairman. 423 is a little roofing bill. We're trying to address unscrupulous roofing contractors. Every time there's a hailstorm, major tornado, hailstorm comes through, we have a problem with people trying to throw a ladder on a roof and become contractors, causing some problem. We're addressing this in two ways. Section 1, the Governor's Office of Consumer Protection is allowed to deal with this issue, and most of that would be turned in probably through insurance agents, because most of the time we get the calls when somebody's been taken advantage of with a roofing claim. It gives the individual an opportunity to get out of a contract if the claim is denied, Now, if a company comes out and does mitigation, try to eliminate further loss, then either the insurance company or the homeowner is obligated to pay. And the second part allows the insurance commissioner's office, if the roofer purports to be an adjuster, to come out and give an estimate and things like that, to fine them and go against them under the adjuster's clause under his purview. That's basically what it does.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring to you today House Bill 454. Unfortunately, this morning we realized it's not on the blue sheet, it was on the yellow sheet, and it was submitted appropriately, but it just didn't get transferred over, so I was told to go ahead and present it. 454, it deals with the presidential preference primary. The last time we dealt with this, we put a date specific in code, and now the RNC and the DNC have agreed on, through their rules, what the date range of the presidential preference primary coming up in 2012. And so unfortunately our date is out of that range, and so all this bill does is, instead of putting date specific, it allows the Secretary of State's office to set that date based on those provisions, and makes a couple of date changes to allow that to happen. And I'd ask for your favorable consideration. It really is needed as we approach the presidential preference primary. It's also received unanimous support and has bipartisan support. And I'd ask for your favorable consideration for House Bill 454.
Any questions? Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Chairman, members of the Rules Committee, bring today to you Proposition 405, LC 334150S. Mentioned this yesterday. I also have an amendment that should be in your packet, AM 331037. Briefly, Mr. Chairman, 405 seeks to create a new licensure category for assisted living. This has been worked on for a while. Many of the industry groups and the advocates have come to agreement. The bill is self-explanatory. It creates that group. The amendment simply seeks to clarify some language. Chairman Chanel had removed some language in the bill in committee, and rightly so, but working with Chairman Cooper, Chairman Chanel, and all of the parties involved, we've got that correction. So I'd like the Rules Committee, like to ask the Rules Committee to bring this amendment to the floor. I can explain it today or explain it more deeply on the floor, but this will perfect the legislation. All the groups are on board. Again, I'd like to thank all the industry groups, and especially those that advocate for our seniors. Co-Age, the Georgia Council on the Aging, AARP, have just done a real good job in working with Chairman Cooper, and especially Chairman Cooper and Chairman Chanel in helping us perfect it with this amendment. So I'd ask the committee's consideration to put 405 on the calendar and bring with it AM 331037 so that we can perfect the legislation and create an opportunity for our seniors in Georgia to age in place.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 3, modified structured HB 503. In the case of a sexual assault, there's an exam that's given to the victim. It includes an exam kit, a nurse and a physician fee, a facility fee, and a medical lab fee. Currently, the local law enforcement pays for this exam. The average is about $450 across the state, but your local police departments or your sheriff's department is paying for that exam. But through the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, there's a Crime Victims Emergency Fund that this bill will allow the law enforcement to instead tap into that fund, which is actually paid for through the convicted felons. So, I mean, it's just a great way for us to allow the felons to pay for the victims' exams.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
I just like to thank you for bringing the bill. I serve on the Family Violence Commission, and this has been a problem because On the local level, there's been a lot of trying to hand off who exactly is going to be responsible for payment of these rape kits, and as a consequence, in some of our areas, some rape victims, quite frankly, have fallen between the cracks.
Well, and some are actually getting the bills.
I know, and this will actually ensure that these victims are taken care of in a very quick manner. This has been a priority of the Commission for a while, and I thank you for bringing the bill.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I came up about a week ago and asked for House Bill 167, the Insurance Delivery Enhancement Act. I'd like to graciously ask one more time for that. Many members of this committee are co-sponsor that, including the chairman himself, and I'd love to have the opportunity to present that to the House.
Any questions? 167.
Top of page 2, I'm sorry.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Doctor, you can jump up there now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Listen, I apologize for stepping up in front a while ago, but listen, I don't know how many of you wear hearing aids, but my hearing aid battery went out a while ago. So I'm going to go try to get through this. I bring you this morning House Resolution 71, which is on page 3. It's a little simple bill asking the state to lift restrictions from a tract of land called Tide Creek in Grady County, Georgia. The state and the county are in complete agreement, and we only need to lift the restrictions through this bill. And I ask for your favorable consideration.
That one. Mr. O'Neill's hearing aid has gone out this morning too. Never mind. Thank you, Doctor.
I can't. Okay.
Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I have two bills this morning. The first one is House Bill 356. Be on the first page, about midway down. Basically, this is a continuation of an escrow accounts in the cemetery code and the funeral service code. What's happened is there's been some legal discussion about what a person is. All we're doing is changing the word person to entity in escrow accounts as far as trusting is concerned. The issue has been that there's been some issues where the money has gone back to a family member, or a family member did not receive the money, and we're just trying to straighten that up.
Any questions? Next.
Same subject matter, but in a different code section in House Bill 449. It's just in Title 7, and the Title 7, that's basically in the banking code, saying what an entity versus a person is. Basically the same, just in a different code section.
Questions? Any more?
No, sir, that's all I have.
You sure you don't want to stand up there and pull a trick on me?
No, sir, I don't want to pull one on you this morning.
Good idea. You're done.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I bring to you HB 197. It's a modified structure, number 8 on the second page. This legislation actually mirrors what was passed by the Department of Corrections 2 years ago. It requires hospitals who treat prisoners in their emergency room not to charge a rate higher than the Medicaid rate. The original legislation did not include the Sheriff's Department, so it just brings the Sheriff's Department into parity with the Department of Corrections. It certainly helps with the taxpayers' monies if this is addressed. If there are any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
Oh, sir, excuse me. I have one other that I'd like to ask for, please.
Jump right in there.
House Bill 280. It's on the second page. It's down after the after the fold. It has to do with emergency telephone services, and the enhanced services would like to be able to use those extra monies for maintaining their service. It's much more difficult to maintain an enhanced service that costs a lot more money. So this is a request, if you don't mind.
I have questions, Mr. Rice.
Representative Sims, I favor your bill. It's a great bill, and it doesn't really help places like Gwinnett County that have 911 investment that they've made that needs to be funded through the opportunities to use these funds in this manner.
So this is, you're in favor?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Holmes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I brought House Bill 225, its modified structure, on second page. This bill just defines sustainable agriculture and promotes it. And I very humbly request your consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions?
Yes, sir.
No, I'm asking.
Oh.
Okay, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Nix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In an abundance of caution, I've come to ask again for House Bill 274. I've asked before. That's related to landfill energy production and the renewal of the Solid Waste Trust Fund.
And y'all do remember there was an amendment to take the rules out?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Geisinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 3, modified structure, 6 up from the bottom, is House Resolution 186. This is the bill or constitutional amendment that would provide for horse racing with parimutuel wagering in Georgia. As you can see on page 2 of your copy, it will go to tuition grants, scholarships, loans to citizens of the state of Georgia, voluntary pre-K, and trauma funding. This is private sector money, Mr. Chairman. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not,
no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Coomer.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here on House Bill 468, which will provide special license plates to certain classes of veterans. I ask your favorable consideration. 468. It's on the third page.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here this morning to ask for HB 117. This is the first entry under structured at the bottom of page 3. This is verbatim the exact same bill as HB 374 from last term, which I appeared to request at that time. Very simply, what this does is we have a situation in the state where we have folks that are sidestepping the application of our non-resident withholding tax on the sale of real estate, and they're doing that by having one person and one entity named as the seller in the closing statement, and that's the person that's paid the money. But then when you get to the paperwork about the exemption that may apply for the non-resident withholding, they're submitting that signed by another party, someone other than the party who is being paid the money. The Department of Revenue disagrees with this, but they don't feel they have the authority to enforce it because the existing language of the code does not actually require that those two entities be one in the same party. This simply puts that in the code. It follows the money so that whoever is paid the money must be the person who claims the exemption if it applies.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chokas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I bring before you two bills for your consideration. House Bill 376 under modified open rule on the first page, about halfway, just changes the qualification for the honorary position of Sheriff Emeritus. It reduces the requirement from 45 years of service to 20 years of service and 75 years of age to 65 years of age. It is supported by the Sheriff's Association and has no cost to the state. It's simply honorary. And also for your consideration, on the second page under modified structured, I bring before you House Bill 275, which allows nursing homes to follow the do not resuscitate order that is already enjoyed by the hospitals.
Any questions? Thank you. Any more?
No, sir.
Thanks. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. HB 17, good to see you all for the 5th time this week. We're still trying to ride. I'd appreciate you helping out some people who need haircuts.
Okay. Any questions of... Oh, okay, there's questions. Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Williams, yes. My people are a little bit concerned about this bill, and they're calling it the Gypsy Barber bill. And they are concerned that they'll just take off, and when they come around for inspections and things of this nature, they'll be gone.
Thank you, Representative Green. One of the things about this rule, that might have been true pre-gaming. Now, the technology exists that if I rent a car from Hertz and don't bring it back, they can cut it off in my garage. The technology is there. It would be very simple. Low jack GPS. You can have. It's the very same thing that happens with the Gypsy Barbecue Man and all of the other mobile units that we have. Just about everything in this state. It is very, very available, the technology now, to track these vehicles, even in the garage.
Mr. Bearden.
Representative Williams, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but getting some phone calls about these individuals that own hair salons, that pay taxes and the upkeep, and they have a deep concern that having a mobile barbershop may be cutting into their business where they're having to do all these things to just pay taxes and in the city or county they work in.
Representative Beard, believe me, this will be additional taxes for the state because it's these people will operate under the very same rules of any barbershop. They're very strict rules, and all they're doing is what small business does every day. Everybody is subject to competition, and they're just looking for a way to chase the American dream. There is no way in the world that a person who's in business can decide that they have a monopoly and nobody else should be in business.
And I understand that, and again, the concern is where there's multiple competition and they're paying their mortgage or their commercial mortgage on that building, they're also paying their property taxes on that building, and then all of a sudden we're going to allow a mobile to come up and maybe set up within even 300 feet of their business and the other business surrounding them. I just want to make sure we're having fair competition between those paying that brick and mortar price to those that's just rolling up on the scene.
Because of a question that was raised yesterday, I called several cities. Cities have in place regulations for mobile operations now, and they're already in place under local ordinances, and this is most likely will not happen because if you park illegally, you're going to be going. And investment, a young man I know that already owns one has $37,000 in the RV before he put in the health requirements. So this is a significant investment with good tax returns for wherever he's buying.
Ms. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really don't see any difference in this than in mobile pet grooming vehicles. I mean, they're in competition with our local veterinarians, but we allow them. It's becoming a convenience for people. I guess it's entrepreneurship and just a different way of doing business. I don't see the difference.
There really isn't.
Ms. Drenner?
I guess my question or comment would be, in my area, we have these little chicken wing places that set up beside of convenience stores, and they seem to move around as well. So I don't see them competing with Chick-fil-A.
They really don't, because the person with the best chicken wings gonna get the business, and that's the way it should be in America.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I asked for House Bill 203 on page 1 of modified rules. And what this bill does is give a notice to the employing agency if a peace officer is under investigation or under disciplinary action. And it also gives a notice to the district attorney, the state solicitor, and the employed agency if a peace officer certification has been revoked.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Peake.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to be before this committee for the first time this year. Glad to have you here. I'm actually not on the blue sheet. I am on the yellow sheet, HB 448. Bring before you a bill that got on the schedule late yesterday. And briefly, this House Bill 448, Mr. Chairman, I'm assuming if it's on the yellow sheet that I can discuss it. Is that okay?
You can go.
Okay. It creates an exception to the directional signs law that will allow the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame Authority to work with GDOT to manufacture, install, and maintain signs to honor and recognize members of the Sports Hall of Fame. The Hall's authority, which as many of you know will be funded by public-private entity with no state funds beginning July 1st, will fund all the costs for the program. The State Transportation Board will have complete oversight, including rules and regs regarding the appearance, placement, and maintenance of the signs. The intent of the bill is to provide an opportunity for a point of pride for a community as the hometown of a sports hero, if they want the sign, as well as provide a branding opportunity to market the Sports Hall of Fame, so that hopefully you come into Calhoun and see home of John Meadows, Sports Hall of Fame member, since I'm assuming you're going to be in there at some point in your lifetime. Not on a billboard, no, sir. On a directional sign.
I'm already on a billboard. I don't need a sign. Okay. I have questions, Mr. Roberts.
Friendly question, but clarification. I thought I heard you say this. Didn't you say that the cost will not be to the state?
There are no costs to the state. It's paid for completely by the authority, which is now a public-private partnership with no state funds whatsoever. So,
thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We appreciate your consideration. Thank you,
Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Coming back to you today again on House Bill 277. Went over it yesterday. This bill just removes the 200 yards and out of sight provision on current law for the supplemental feeding practice, which is legal. This change only applies to the southern zone, has to have landowner permission. I think Chairman Roberts also has an amendment, which I am in favor of, that should be on your desk. And that addresses a couple of questions that came up during our numerous hours of prior hearings on this bill. And basically these amendments just tries to clear up any issues, where if you've got someone hunting on a neighboring property and someone has the feeders on the next property over, this amendment will require the feeders to be at least 50 yards from the property line, which would reduce any potential risks for a violation issued to someone who is on their own property for what's being done next to them. We've also increased the fine on the amendment for poaching big game. So that is to meant to deter anyone from trying to say that they're hunting, let's say, wild turkeys, and then when they're caught hunting over bait, that they would say, hey, and I was hunting feral hogs. So this is meant to clarify that issue. So we've addressed many issues, and we've had several substitutes and in this amendment, and we've just tried to make everybody happy and do what the people want. I ask for your favorable consideration. I also have House Bill 477, just a simple bill from the Commissioner of Insurance, wants to change the annual agent's license from 1 year to 2 years. It'd be just a transition over the next 2 years to change to a biennial license, which was unanimously approved in committee. Thank you.
We got a question.
Representative Shaw, I had a question. And on the amendment, you familiar with the amendment? I'm just trying to help with the wording, honestly. On line 8, it says any person who takes any big game other than deer upon, over, around, or near such feed bait shall be guilty of conviction of misdemeanor. How are we going to legally interpret, how close is around or near? If I shoot a black bear that is 200 yards away from a feeder, am I going to be in trouble?
Well, under current law, you cannot hunt bear or turkeys within 200 yards of any type of feed. I think that's right. So this would mainly meant to just clarify if someone was trying to say that they're hunting something that they're not.
Thank you, Chairman Mills. This current law says 200 yards and out of sight. This is just changing on deer as far as the bill goes. So this is addressing really the concern that somebody might have if somebody was out there and hunting turkeys and stuff like that around the feeder. This is just seeking to address it, and that's all it does.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
If the current law says 200 yards, why do you want to say upon, over, around, or near? Why don't you say 200 yards? If all you're trying to do is get deer out of that.
Well, this is
put the confusion
Chairman Roberts' amendment, and
I think you agreed to it, though, didn't you? It's your bill, right?
I did. This is something that the DNR thought would needed to be done to clean up existing language, just to make sure that you never have any problem with somebody trying to say that they're doing something that they're not, and gives the enforcement the ability to have some further clarification.
There again, if the law says 200 yards, and that's specific, and that's something they could prove from an enforcement standpoint, why do we want to put ambiguous and nebulous language into the law? Just like Representative Mills says. I mean, we seem to be confusing things rather than clarifying them, in my
view. Like I said,
wait a second. Y'all, hey. Mr. Whip, he's going to enlighten us.
A friendly question to Chairman Roberts and to you. Would it, along those lines, would it be better to simply to strike that upon, over, around, or near, and just put within 200 yards of? Seeing how we're dealing with a criminal statute, wouldn't it be better? Okay.
That's fine with me. I'll get that taken care of immediately.
Sometimes the buckhead whip likes to take aim at something.
It's time to get down.
Thank you. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Mr. Dollar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bring to the committee a very simple measure, HB 463. This bill would authorize the Commissioner of Insurance to issue limited licenses to operators of self-storage facilities for the purpose of selling policies for property contained for loss, damage, or theft within self-storage facility. This is similar to the way car rental companies operate as far as selling you a limited policy to cover that car, and cell phone companies as well. Well, they will sell you a policy to cover that device, and that's all the bill does.
Questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question.
Sir.
This allows a self-storage operator to sell the insurance, but he has to become an insurance agent?
I'm not sure what the definition is of agent, but he would be issued a very limited license from the department, yes. Okay. Only to sell that product.
I mean, did this come from the self-storage industry?
Yes, the executive director. There's a good chance he lives within the confines of the 45th District. Yes, sir. But I also like to say that the bill faces no opposition. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I come today to ask for House Bill 373 to be voted out. It's on the third page on modified structural rule. It's the seventh bill down. This bill does simply for completely rehabilitated juveniles that are in custody of the Department of Juvenile Justice to be eligible for a modification of sentence since they're behaving well in custody. There are two good reasons for this. Number one, it gives them an incentive to behave. And secondly, it saves a lot of money to allow a modified sentence to release them out of custody at a cost of an estimated $13,800 a day. It's been in rules for about 9 days. I calculate that's about $125,000 we're going to be saving. Any questions? Thank you for your favorable consideration.
Mr. Harden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Rules Committee, I bring before you House Bill 323, halfway down your front page on your blue sheet. This is the bill that is going to put Georgia in compliance with federal law in regards to allowing auto dealers and finance companies to go from 20 to 30 days to perfect their liens. A lot of dealers and finance companies in these times are dealing with situations where everything is not through the process before they're starting to receive fines and penalties and whatnot for not having that lien perfected. There's no opposition to this bill except maybe those that bought a vehicle in hopes of defrauding the person that they bought it from, knowing that they were about to file for immediate bankruptcy. So tax commissioners, Department of Revenue, everyone's on board with it. Any questions? I'll be happy to take them.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Jones.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. HB 50 is the second one on page 1, and this bill is asking that the beginning and the ending date is used. Currently, we may reference that beginning with 2010-2011 school year. We would like to put in parentheses the month, the day, and the year, the beginning and the ending month, day, and year, whenever that is referenced.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen. I bring to you House Bill 166 on the first page. Bring this on behalf of two of the professional trade associations, the Society of Engineers and the Professional Mapping Association of Surveyors. This bill, currently what they're asking to do is to raise the requirements to stand for the professional test of those two professions. Currently there is no requirements of any type of bachelor degree, And they have found, in conjunction with working with their respective licensing boards, that there's such a low percentage of people that pass that first stage of the testing. That would be the engineering and training and the surveying and training act. And what they're asking for is that these people in the future would have a BS, at least a minimum of a BS degree in those prescribed studies, engineering out of an engineering school, and that for the accompanying degree for the surveyors.
Questions? Got questions? Mr. Earhart.
Representative Powell, let me make sure I understand what you're asking for. I see a little bit with respect to some of the engineering, but on a surveyor, now, in order to operate a survey instrument, it's not necessarily necessary to have a BS in engineering to operate a theodolite. And let me make sure this is going forward only, or are you going to cut people out who may not have a BS in engineering from being in the survey business?
Does not cut anyone out. As a matter of fact, this sets the date forward for those who are already into that engineering and training and the surveying and training procedure. There's a two-step process to get a license for either one of these professions. One is that they have to take a test for the engineering and training, or if they're going into the surveying and training, then they have to do a journeyman training under that period of time before they stand for the regular test. What they're having and they're finding is the licensing boards are finding that they have a well below 50% pass rate in the training in that engineer EIT or the SIT survey. And what they're asking to do is say that these folks need to have their degrees and the degree in, quote, those issues that are prescribed by their respective boards, like in hydrology has become such a major issue in the surveyors. Well, there's no requirements right now, and this is what they're asking for.
I'm just uncomfortable with more licensing, and thank you.
Next one. You got others?
No, sir, just one this morning.
Another miracle. Mr. Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. On page 3 at the top is House Bill 339, and we're here to request your favorable consideration of that bill. This is the bill that would amend the current Georgia emergencies powers of the governor and the judicial branch. During a public health emergency, such as the case of a pandemic, the Department of Health issues vaccination orders or quarantine orders, and those need to be directly appealable to a superior court. This would modify the venue for challenges of those orders, also allow for direct appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court, change the name of the designated authorized judicial officer to being the Chief Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court, as well as extend the period of time for a judicial emergency declared by the judicial officer to be that commensurate with the time declared by the governor during a state of emergency. Do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm requesting House Bill 476. All 476 does, it sets up a basic structure for the governance of a state-run health insurance exchange, and also establishes an advisory committee to determine what the best options available for our state. The reality of this is if our state fails to meet deadlines prescribed by the Federal Patient Protection and Affordability Care Act, then the federal government will come in and do this for us. It's just a cautious address to this reality because it maintains state authority in this exchange.
Questions? If you got questions, we're going to do the raise hand deal. Mr. Chanel.
Representative Smith, isn't it true that current federal law says that states have the option to do this up through 2014, and if the state does not design their insurance exchange, then the federal government will do it? Is that right?
Yes, sir. You're exactly right.
So if folks who might be against the state doing this must then in fact be folks who want the federal government to do it rather than us.
Well, you're right. Another comment I was going to make: if you're opposed to this, then you support the federal government doing it.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one more bill.
Yes, sir.
House Bill 472. This just allows your brew pubs throughout the state to increase the barrels of beer that they can manufacture or produce from 5,000 to 10,000. That's on structured, and also increase the number that they can sell to wholesalers from 500 to 5,000 barrels. And all the industry is in support of this.
Okay. Mr. Earhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the very back page, there's a resolution, H.R. 495, Mr. Rice and I have. It's come out of the Committees on Higher Education. It's a fairly crucial study committee that includes the governor's office and the House and the Senate. It's something we would like to do before crossover. It's 30 years since we've studied the formula in higher education. It's long past the time that it's going to take a significant amount of time to get the work done and the resources of all three branches.
Thank you. Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just ask one more time for House Bill 396 under the structured rule, which is the City of Peachtree Corners Incorporation Charter. The second bill I'd like to ask for is House Bill 59, which is the lawful presence in our university system verification, requiring the use of the SAVE system for verification for enrollment. And the third one is HB 269, which is the Department of Driver Services bill with the amendment that takes out the fee structure that's in it.
Okay. Mr. Morris on 31. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would bring your attention to House Bill 486. This would exempt air ambulance service, prepaid air ambulance service memberships from being regulated by the insurance commissioner. Much in the way I believe the rent-a-car business has an exemption. I'd be happy to answer questions.
No questions.
Okay.
Mr. Hembry. Hit it.
House Bill 292, employment security, it just allows the Department of Labor to extend rates and credits and some changes to the provisions under the Department of Labor. That's House Bill 292.
Mr. Bearden.
To show support for House Bill 376 on the honorary sheriff emeritus by Representative Chokis.
Ms. Sheldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask again for House Bill 226, the creation of individual development accounts, and also like to put my support behind House Bill 271, the Georgia Student Extracurricular Partnership Act, and House Bill 33, the zero-based budget.
Ms. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask again on page 2, House Bill 303. That's the PA and nurse practitioners bill that they agreed upon that clarifies some of their duties. And on page 3, I would like to ask for House Bill 343. This is one that the governor is requesting. It's for the creation and the mental health stabilization units that we have to meet the feds. And also on page 3 is House Bill 470, which is a reevaluation and actual relaxing of some of the requirements on graduates of non-traditional schools of nursing. And last, I'd like to put my name by 275 so that people who are residents of nursing homes, their request to be not resuscitated can be honored like it is in hospitals.
Mr. Willard.
Thank you. I'd like to ask again for House Bill 256. This is the provision providing for means of distributing the prepaid wireless service to 911 providers, to the local governments. It's important. That's money being lost that we're not receiving at that level. Then I also put my name beside the Jury Composition Reform Act, which is a bill sponsored by Mr. Atwood. He's not here this morning. That's House Bill 415. This is important to get our jury selection system in compliance with the Constitution. And lastly, the PAC bill, House Bill 373. This is supported by the juvenile courts and the Department of Juvenile Justice, and it's a good step in rehabilitation of youth.
Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I put my name aside for it.
Wait a second. Roberts, I got you back. I got you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name aside 487 and also 277.
Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the structured rule, House Bill 271, which is the Georgia Student Extracurricular Partnership Act, which would be a great benefit for many of our public school students in the state.
Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, want to help put my name beside House Bill 487 to eliminate this problem, this oversight. And also on the yellow sheet in advance, if I could ask for House Bill 235, which was former Speaker Emeritus Burkhalter's bill, to help protect the third largest economic engine in the state, and that's over at the Congress Center. 235.
Okay. Ms. Abrams. I'm sorry. I will never get the numbers right, so y'all just jump in there. Ms. Hughley.
Okay, but I'm sure Ms. Abrams will ask for something if you
Well, since she just got here, I thought maybe she wanted to add something.
I'd like to ask for Mr. Williams' House Bill 70 and Mr. Jackson's House Bill 203. And also, I think we need to offer our support to House Bill 373 on behalf of the children.
Mr. Chanel. He waves. Let me go. You're not next. Ms. Smith is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm under modified open rule, the last bill, House Bill 502 on page 1. And this deals with the lead poisoning prevention code section of Georgia law. Last year we had to update our law to reflect changes at the federal level. In the process of this bill traveling through House and Senate and back to House and back to Senate, a code section since 1994 that is the enforcement part of this act was left off. There was no strike through or anything. We checked with Legislative Counsel. We also checked with the Attorney General's office, and we need this part of the bill to be put back in, or we cannot be the agent of record for this enforcement. Thank you. And at the proper time, may I make a motion to move it to modified structure given its past history?
Mr. Smyrie.
Yes. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I'd like to, he's been up here a couple of times, House Bill 411, Representative Flood, dealing with Fayette County. I'd like to ask for that. And also House Bill 50, Representative Jones on state date when procedures become part of the agency, and having a date when the provision will become applicable. So House Bill 50 and House Bill 411. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Manning.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask for 502 as well as 373 and 185, please, sir.
Mr. Weldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 2, there's House Bill 272, Juvenile Court. This just doesn't give a violator a 2 bites at the apple for hearing. on the same issues. Also on page 3, House Bill 373. I ask that that be put on the rules comment. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Drenner. Ms. Drenner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to again ask for House Bill 225 and House Resolution 186. I've received an overabundance of emails in support of this and would like to go on record as supporting it as well.
Mr. Hanner. That's right.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask for Chairman 485, which corrects a major problem we have in rural Georgia and affects the release of federal hogs.
Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of Chairman Golick, he has asked me to bring forth House Bill 181, which is on page 3 under structured rule, and House Bill 413 under modified structure, under surplus line insurance to revise. And I'd also like to ask for House Bill 225, which supports the sustainable promotion of agriculture. And Mr. Chairman, if I might, I have one on the yellow page that I would like to just briefly comment on, which is House Bill 340, which states the clerk may electronically submit the proper documentation to the Department of Corrections, and this is just dealing with e-filing there, and then to codify the $22 in the code section that we pay to counties for holding prisoners.
Mr. Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bring back to the committee House Bill 301. This is a bill that would allow a variance in weight for haulers of poultry waste, tree bark, and hot mix asphalt and construction debris. There was some misconception that we were allowing these people something that nobody else was getting, but I called the committee's attention to the fact that we already give a 5% variance to log haulers, poultry haulers, cotton, feed from feed mill, and granite and concrete. I have an amendment on your desk. It's AM 340490 that I would also like to have the committee look at as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call again to your attention House Bill 374. It would have been on the first page under modified open. I understand from staff that it has been inadvertently left off, but I'm sure the chair is well aware it's eligible to be called. Just simply places the current code into the 21st century, and I'm well aware that the Secretary of State has alerted the chair that he is very much so is in favor of the bill.
Ms. Abrams.
With apologies to the chairman for my tardiness, I'd like to request HB 398 under modified open rule, which will correct an error in the Board of Education Pensions and Retirements plan for Fulton County. I'd also like to request HB 128, Representative Taylor's bill regarding license plates for Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You just slipped right by me a while ago.
You've been talking all morning.
I know, and I apologize for that. There are 3 bills on here that were requested by the insurance commissioner. That was House Bill 477 in the modified open, but the biennial license renewal. Also, the House Bill 370 on the risk-based capital levels, and also House Bill 413 on the surplus lines, and I'm asking for those. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Walker.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question about House Bill 248. For a couple of weeks, it's been on the consideration calendar, and now it's not, but it's on the general calendar. Could you give us some insight on that? I'd like to ask for it. It's a great bill.
Okay, you can have
Chairman
it.
Neal's bill on the Health Shares Ministries.
You can have it.
It is a good bill.
I can have what, Mr. Chairman?
You can have that bill.
Thank you. Thank
But
you.
listen to Mr. Weldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the first page, House Bill 185, it's a Runaway Youth Safety Act. This provides a harbor for children that have run away, and this is targeting specifically those children that are out there homeless and don't have parents looking for them. Ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. All right, since we're behind, you ready? HB 33, modified structure. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. HB 117, structured. Any objection? HB 167. Any objection? So HB 181 under structured. Any objection? All those in favor signify by aye. Opposed? HB 371 modified structure. Objection. HB 225 modified structure. Any objection? HB 226 modified structure. Any objection? HB 248 modified structure. Any objection? HB 256 modified structure. Any objection? HB 261 modified structure. Any objection? HB 269 with the amendment modified structure. Did I hear a move on that one? Any objection? And then I need move on the amendment. Any objection? HB 272 modified structure. Any objection? HB 275 modified structure. Any objection? HB 280 modified structure. Any objection? HB 285 modified structure. Objection? HB 292 modified structure. Any objection? HB 303 modified structure. Objection. HB 323 modified open. Any objection? HB 423 modified structure. Any objection? HB 339 modified structure. With it's got an amendment. So move on them. Since I'm getting ahead of myself, let's move on the amendment first. Any opposition? Now move on the bill 339 as amended. HB 343 modified structure. HB 373 modified structure. HB 374 modified open. Did that one move? Okay. That is with an amendment also, so I need to do the amendment first. Modified open, never mind. Let's go. That's 374. Yep, move. All right. And HR 71 under modified structure. HR 71 modified structure. He can't hear us if y'all don't move real loud. Okay. My other one thought that was funny. That's the calendar. What? Oh, everybody hold tight, hold tight. Got one for you. We will meet Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Rules will be Tuesday, 2 o'clock. No rules on Monday. No rules on Monday.